大変長らくお待たせをいたしました。ただいまより第2回2023日本国際メタバース大会を開会させていただきます。皆様、本日はお忙しいところ、またお暑い中お越しいただきましてありがとうございます。1ヶ月にわたりまして祇園祭が行われているここ京都で第2回目となりますメタバース大会が開催されますこと嬉しく思っております。現実世界と仮想世界が融合した未来のインターネットの形態が注目される今、本日は皆様方に最先端のメタバースの情報を持って帰っていただければと思っております。申し遅れましたが、本日司会進行は私阿部直子が務めてまいります。皆様と共にしっかりと学ばせていただきたいと思っております。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。また前半の通訳は一般社団法人国際メタバース協会副会長で NPO 法人国際技術交流協会理事長でいらっしゃいます小室博美様に中国語を、そして IEEE ジャパンオフィスの梶川芽衣子様に英語をお願いしております。小室様、梶川様、よろしくお願いいたします。さて、第1回大会は昨年10月でしたが、海外メディアを通じて10万人以上の方々にオンラインでご参加いただきました。2回目となる本日も、この会場とオンラインとのハイブリッドで進めてまいります。本日開催の第2回2023日本国際メタバース大会は、一般社団法人国際メタバース協会と IEEE スタンダーズアソシエーションおよび NPO 法人国際技術交流協会の共催でございます。今回の大会には自民党デジタル社会推進本部 Web3.0 プロジェクトチーム座長の衆議院議員平正明様、2025年日本国際博覧会協会の副会長でいらっしゃいます臼比佐子様、京都市長の門川大作様、IEEE スタンダーズアソシエーション会長ユユアン様、NVIDIA の開発サイコロジー担当副社長でメタバース標準フォーラムの会長ニール・トレベット様をお招きしております。またアモニカブランズ会長のヤットシュウ様、IEEE ブロックチェーンテクノロジーコミュニティチェア共同議長のラメッシュ・ラマドス様、日本を代表するゲームソフト開発会社株式会社東勢会長兼 CEO で京都商工会議所副会頭の斉藤茂様などスペシャルゲストにもご登壇いただきます。本日はメタバース、人工知能、デジタルツイン、バーチャルリアリティなどコンピューター分野のノーベル賞といわれる ACM チューリング賞受賞者、研究者、トップエキスパートの皆様がここ京都に集まり、メタバースの可能性を探求し、その成果を共有し議論されます。またハイエンドプロフェッショナル国際的実用性の原則に基づき学術フォーラム、企業展示、アプリケーション体験、デジタルアート展示会などもございます。どうぞ一日たっぷりとお楽しみいただきたいと思います。 それではここでご来賓の皆様方をご紹介させていただきます。京都市長門川大作様でございます。早稲田大学メタバース研究所所長西村昌司様です。そしてアップランドミー共同創設者兼共同 CEO でいらっしゃいますダークルース様です。ダークルース様、ただいまこちらに向かってくださるということですが、先にお名前ご紹介をさせていただきました。それではご来賓の皆様方を代表いただきまして、京都市長門川大作様よりご挨拶を頂戴したいと思います。門川市長、どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。
おはようございます。京都市長の門川大作です。世界のメタバースの発展にきまして、昨年発足しました国際メタバース協会、その会長を務められる臼井佐子元学長をはじめ、多くの関係者のご尽力で、第2回もここ京都でご開催いただきますことを感謝申し上げ、お集めの皆さんに、またオンラインでご参加の皆さんに、心から敬意をし感謝申し上げます。第1回では世界各国の専門家や企業に加え、多くの方々、10万人以上の方々がオンラインでご参加されたと伺っています。そして今回は日本、中国、ヨーロッパでご活躍のスペシャリストをゲストにお迎えされての会であります。また国際メタバース賞の授賞式などが開催されると、本大会を契機に企業や国の垣根を越えて最先端の情報が共有され、メタバースの概念が議論がより深まり、またさまざまな社会課題の解決へ貢献いただけることを願っております。さて、先月京都で日本最大級のスタートアップイベント IBS 京都が開催されました。実に1万人を超える方が京都に集わりました。外国からも2、3000人の方がお越しになられました。それと連続してスタートアップのイベントだけでも、何度もこの京都で開催されます。おかげさんでコロナが明けて、さまざまな国際会議も活発になってまいりました。京都は1000年を超える都であり、輝かしい伝統の町でありますが、同時に伝統とは革新の連続である。常に最先端を目指したイノベーションの町、スタートアップの町であります。そしてありがたいことに、京都市内に36の大学があり、15万人を超える学生さん、実に人口の1割が学生さんで、近年留学生も1万4000人まで増えてまいりました。文化芸術、観光、さまざまな文化が盛んであり、文化庁もこの春に東京から京都に全面的に移転してきましたけど、私は京都の最も特徴はイノベーション、サイエンスであると、このように思っております。そんな京都のさまざまな強みを生かしていただいて、メタバースの活用による魅力発信も私ども取り組んでいるところであります。バーチャル京都館、京都館プラス X を開設する、あるいは昨年4月には ANA グループと株式会社東勢とで連携協定を締結しまして、バーチャル観光のプラットフォーム ANA グランホエールを開設いたしました。先月13日には先行的に香港や台湾などでサービスが開始されまして、間もなく日本国内でもサービスが開始されます。 二条城等の奥深い京都の文化や自然を堪能いただけるものと考えております。観光だけでなしに幅広い奥深い文化芸術あるいは文化財の保存活用などについてもメタバースが大きな役割を果たしていただけるものと確信しております。さて、今コロナ禍が挙げて世界は貧困や格差あるいはウクライナによる戦争ウクライナにおける戦争京都市はウクライナの首都キーウ市と今年姉妹都市52周年であります。悲惨な状況があっております。メタバースを含めた文化の交流で多様性を認め合いそして包摂性のある社会を作っていく誰一人取り残さない SDGs の達成そんなことにも心をしっかりとつなぎながら世界の発展と人々の幸せ平和のために貢献するメタバースの社会であってほしいこのように念願しております。皆さん方のご尽力がそうしたことに貢献できますことメタバースのさらなる発展をご祈念申し上げましてお祝いとお願いの挨拶とさせていただきます。ありがとうございます。
角川市長ありがとうございました。この後通訳の方をさせていただきます。
これ使えそう撮ってます ?OK, thank you. これ市長の挨拶ですね。For the development of Japan and For the development of Japan and the world's metaverse, I'm delighted to extend my heartfelt congratulations on the second convention taking place, thanks to the dedication of many individuals, including former University President Dr. Usubi Sako, who serves as the president of the International Metaverse Association established last year. It brings me great joy that Kyoto has been chosen once again as the venue for this significant event and extend a warm welcome to all of you from around the world. Last year's inaugural convention saw experts, companies, and over 100,000 people participating online from different countries. This time, we're excited to have special guests from Japan, China, and Europe who will speak at this event. And we'll also have an International Metaverse Awards ceremony. I hope this gathering fosters collaboration across industries and sparks deeper discussion about the Metaverse concept. Last month, from June 28th to 30th, Kyoto hosted the largest startup event in Japan, IVS Kyoto, where approximately 10,000 people, including entrepreneurs and investors from the world of metaverse and NFT-related ventures, gathered and enlivened the city. Kyoto is a city that cherishes both tradition and innovation, driving progress in various fields. With 36 universities and a population of around 150,000 university students and 14,000 international students, it is a city centered around education. Furthermore, we boost diverse industries like culture, arts, tourism, traditional crafts, and pop culture, making Kyoto a city full of business opportunities. In our city, we are actively utilizing the strength of such a metropolis by collaborating with private business to promote the appeal of the metaverse and boost tourism. For example, we established the Kyoto Pavilion Plus X last year, offering unique metaverse exhibitions and experiences. Additionally, in April last year, we entered into a cooperative agreement with the ANA Group and Tose Corporation to develop a virtual tourism platform called ANA Grand Whale. I have been informed that the service was launched in places like Hong Kong and Taiwan last month and will soon be provided within Japan as well. This platform allows people to experience various tourist spots in Kyoto, including Nijō Castle, through their smartphone screens, and I'm eagerly looking forward to it. The metaverse holds promise not only in the tourism sector, but also promoting culture and the arts, conserving cultural assets, revitalizing the regional economy, fostering connections between people, and promoting migration. We aim to proactively utilizing cutting-edge technology while sharing Kyoto's cultural strengths with the world. In conclusion, I wish for the success of your endeavors and a bright future for the metaverse and our nation's industries. Thank you very much.
大家好，今天是第2届日本国际元宇宙大会在京都举行。我们今天邀请了京都市长为我们做了致辞。那我现在在这里为大家翻译中文的致辞。去年成立了国际元宇宙协会，宗旨是日本和世界各地的虚拟元宇宙发展，促进发展的元宇宙时代。我针对第2届会议的召开表示衷心的祝贺，一语在这里有许多人的努力，前校长Usabi Sago 校长和许多的人的努力，我很高兴你们选择京都作为如此重要的活动的举办地。我仅向来自世界各地的朋友们表示衷心的欢迎。听说第1届比赛元宇宙大会的时候，有10万人以上的线上参加者。此外还有来自世界各地的专家和公司。自此活动在日本、中国、欧洲特邀嘉宾等登场，并举行国际元宇宙颁奖典礼。我们希望以本次会议为切合，分享跨行业、跨企业的一个前沿信息，进一步加深对元宇宙概念的讨论。顺便说一下，上个月6月28号到30号举办了日本最大的创业活动 INSKYODO， 包括来自世界各地的 Metaverse 和 NFT 相关的企业家和投资者在内的大约有1万人聚集在京都，度过了愉快的时光。京都是一座拥有传统与创新文化的城市，在各个领域都通过创新实现了创造性的发展。该市还是一座大学学生小镇，36所大学的聚集的一个知识的城市，约15万名大学生和1.2万名国际留学生在此学习。此外，文化艺术、旅游、传统产业、流行文化等各产业也都得以蓬勃发展。在本市，我们还利用了元宇宙与民间企业合作，努力促进旅游业的发展，传播城市的魅力，充分发展城市的优势。例如，去年我们开设了虚拟京都，在 Kyoto 的虚拟的世界的场馆里面提供了元宇宙独有的展览和体验。去年4月，全日空集团与东兴株式会社签署了开发虚拟元宇宙旅游平台全日空在虚拟世界的旅游的合作协议。上个月13号，该服务在香港、台湾等地推出，听说日本也要提供该服务。我非常期待能够在智能手机的屏幕上体验包括2条城在内的京都的各个观光景点。元宇宙不仅可以在旅游领域发挥作用，还可以在文化艺术的振兴、文化遗产的保护、地方经济的振兴、相关人口的创造和扩大、促进移民等各个领域的发挥作用。我们希望在积极利用尖端的科技技术的同时，进一步向世界传播京都的文化力量。最后，祝愿通过本次活动， 元宇宙和日本产业的未来更加光明，也祝愿你们的大家的事业更加发展，更加成功。谢谢。
ありがとうございました。角川市長の挨拶いただきまして、梶川様と小室様に通訳をいただきました。なおこちらの方ね、最新の AI にて通訳の方もいただきました。ありがとうございました。では角川市長、本当にお忙しい中をありがとうございました。この後ご公務に戻られるため退席なさいます。今一度皆様大きな拍手をお送りくださいませ。角川市長、お忙しい中ありがとうございました。角川市長にご祝辞いただきまして、この後基調講演など進めてまいりたいと思います。それではまず最初に特別基調講演といたしまして、衆議院議員で自民党デジタル社会推進本部 Web3.0 プロジェクトチーム座長でいらっしゃいます平正明様から、日本Web3.0 現状と展望と題しまして、本日は映像にて講演をいただきます。それではどうぞ皆様ご覧くださいませ。
はい、皆さんおはようございます。衆議院議員の平正明です。日本国際メタバース大会2023開催誠におめでとうございます。冒頭ご挨拶という大変名誉な機会をいただきました。今回メタバースが課題ということでありますが、Web3、AI すべてが関連をしてくる世界だというふうに思っております。クリプトウィンターということでですね、各国規制協会に入っていく中で、一部からはですね、もう Web3 はもう終わった、これから AI だみたいなことを言う人がいますが、これはもう明らかに間違いであろうというふうに私は確信をしております。生成 AI、またさまざまに AI が進化することでですね、ブロックチェーンの世界もセキュアになっていきますし、さらにはメタバースの空間もですね、どんどんリッチになっていく、そういうことだろうというふうに思っております。今回のカンファレンスを通じてですね、各皆様が熱い議論をなされ、そしてその成果がですね、さらなるメタバースの発展につながりますよう、心からご記念を申し上げましてご挨拶とさせていただきます。ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。衆議院議員の平正明様よりご挨拶をいただきました。それではこの後講演へと移らせていただきます。まずご登壇いただきますのは、一般社団法人国際メタバース協会会長で、前京都精華大学学長でいらっしゃいました。そして2025年日本国際博覧会協会副会長でいらっしゃいます臼火佐光様にご講演をいただきたいと思います。佐光様、どうぞご準備をお願いいたします。本日は日本のメタバース生態コミュニティというテーマにてご講演をいただきます。佐古会長は本当に日々多忙な中、今日は皆様方にご講演をしてくださるんですけれども、まずは皆様ご準備をさせていただきますので、今しばらくお待ちくださいませ。
はい、ただいま、紹介が、ありました、臼井佐子と申します。昨年度まで京都精華大学という大学の学長を務め、昨年の4月から京都精華大学にあるすべての研究センターを統括する機構の機構長を務めております。また今、博覧会協会の副会長でもいます。本当に1年目、2年目に続き、多くの人にサポートしていただき、このメタバースの大会ができたことを本当に嬉しく思っております。公務で帰られたのではありますが、門川市長がスタートからずっと応援していただいている関係上、本当に感謝の気持ちでいっぱいです。今回2日間にかけてさまざまな議論ができる一つの場が設けられるというふうに我々は考えております。メタバース協会の大きな目的というのは、この我々がまだ把握しきれてない、ちょっとマスターできてないこのテクノロジーをどういうふうにいろんな人にですねアクセスできるのか、またそれにまつわる問題というのはみんなで一緒に議論して解決していくということを我々は願ってこの協会を立ち上げております。どうか皆さんの温かいご支援とまた本当にご指導を賜る、またメタバース協会のこれからの発展を見守っていただければなというふうに思っております。まず自分の講演の前に挨拶とさせていただきました。よろしくお願いします。ちょっと私のスライドは今使えますかね。OK ですか。はい、なんかちょっとスライドの下の部分はなぜか切れてるんですけど、大丈夫かな。ちょうど多分この翻訳のところが重なっています。私が今日預かっているテーマというのは、日本のメタバース生態コミュニティとどういう動きがあるのかということを少し簡単にまとめさせていただくということでございます。じゃあとりあえず続けていきますね。先ほどお話をさせていただいたので、このメタバース協会はどういう目的であるのかということを少し皆さんに紹介した次第であります。この部分はもう紹介済みなので省略したいと思います。はい、もう一つはですね、日本におけるメタバースというのはちょっとねもう1、2行が下にあるんですけどね、この AI をもうちょっと下げていただいていいですか。もう少し下げていただくことできる？かなり下の部分かかってますけど。あとね、もっと2、3行ぐらい下げてください。消えちゃうんですよね。言語の問題がなければ、一応ね、スライドを全部英語に訳したので、それでちょっと消してもいいんじゃないですかね。ダメかな。はい、とりあえず、ちょっとやりながらいきたいと思います。そのメタバースがなんで、この頃加速的に、必要となっているのか、また、なんで非常に皆さんがその必要性を感じているのかっていうのは、やっぱりパンデミック以前と以降では、人々の意識がだいぶ変わってきたんじゃないかなと思うんですね。我々大学でも パンデミック以前にオンラインの授業はたまにはやったりとか、オンラインミーティングもたまにやるんだけど、そこまで積極的に進めようと思わなかったし、でまた別途ですね、あんまり得意ではなかった。でいろんな多分技術もあったんでしょうけど、あんまりそんなにマスターしなかったんですよね。でもパンデミックによって人々の状況、生活環境が変わった中で、やっぱりオルタナティブなバーチャルな、いわゆる仕事空間、生活空間、あるいはエンターテインメントですね、娯楽空間というものが多分必要と感じられてきたんじゃないかなというふうに思います。一方で、そこでメタバースはなんで日本の場合はそこまで伸びなかったと、やっぱり安全性がまだわからない。で一般の人々がこの空間の中で何ができるんだろうなということを多分悩まれている方が多かったんじゃないかなというふうに思うんですよね。だからそういう意味でメタバースという新しい一つのオルタナティブなある意味で我々の選択肢を増やすようなものとしてこれからも日本で発展していくであるということを考えています。ちょっと日本のいろんな新聞で日本のメタバースどういうふうに語られているかというのは少しこの最近のものを調べさせていただいたんですけど、かなりいろんなところでジャパンメタバースパイオニアとかなんかいろんなことをじゃあ昔多分日本にはちょっとスキルがどっかであったんじゃないかなとか、でそのスキルをどういうふうにもう一度使っていくかということはかなり考えられたりします。また別のこれは NHK ワールドの資料でこれは載ってあるんですけど、かなり加速的に2021年見ていただければと思いますが、先ほども話をしたようにやっぱりCOVID 以前ではまだちょっとメタバースというのはそんなに積極的に関わると思わなかったんですけど、ただもう一気に生活がすごい変わった中でメタバースが非常に今その経済マーケット的にもかなり伸びてきたということがございます。いろんなところでですね、大学とかいろんなところでもメタバースのニュースがここにジャパンタイムズであったりとか出てきてます。だからある意味で日常化してるんじゃないかなというふうに思ったりはします。私自身とメタバースの関わりっていうのは実はですね、同じように COVID によって何かを選択しなきゃいけないときにメタバースを使わせていただいた経験を少し皆さんと共有したいと思います。この ICAS というインターナショナルコンベンションなんですけど、エイジアンスコラーズですね、アジアの学者の方々が集まって3年に一度開催されるイベントであります。でこのイベントはですね、京都精華大学が誘致、一応ビットを探すんですけど、競争で私たちが開催権を勝ち取ったでありますが、開催する直前に、いわゆる開催権というのは我々が取ったのが2019年なんですけど、で開催するのが2021年、もう本当にコロナの真っ最中になってしまいました。このインターナショナルコンベンション・オブ・エイジアン・スコラーズという ICAS12 というのはもともと8月の24から27、これが Call for Proposal の時の情報です。でその時にかなり実は京都市コンベンションビューローとかですね積極的に連携をとって京都府京都市コンベンションビューローと一緒にやっていくということで、かなりこれ海外の人たちに対して京都のこととか聖火台でどんなことをやっているかというのは出したんですね。ちょっと ICAS のプロモーションビデオ申し訳ないですけど少しシェアします。これはまずインターネットにいいかな。ちょっと一回画面閉じていただいてインターネットを接続します。 分の Wi-Fi 使います。多分そのちょっと私の Wi-Fi 取らないからホテルの Wi-Fi ってありますか？私の Wi-Fi はい、失礼します。このメタバース協会と同じような、大きなちょっとコンベンションを開催しようと思って、この時に京都に3000人ぐらいのお客さんが来ていただくということを予定していて、このようなビデオを出したんですね。はい、なんとですね、このプロモーションビデオを出したら、5、6000人近くの登録があって、もうみんな京都に行きたいという、気持ちが山々でした。で、先ほどもお話ししたように、かなり多大なサポートがあって、京都府京都市コンベンションビューローで、あったんですが、このビデオを見て京都に行きたくないという人は多分いないと思うんですね。で、大体登録が2019年になりますので、2年前から準備ちょっとずつやるんですけど、登録された後に今度コロナがやってきたわけですね。でもうこの5、6000人どうするか、もう非常に悩ましい話でした。でまず、コロナは1年で終わるんじゃないかと勝手な思い込みで、もうまだ2019年なので2020年の様子を見ようと、1年間待ってもコロナの対策というか何者なのかもわからない、いつ終わるのかわからないということで、もう一度皆さんにどうですかと。でみんな京都に行きたいとおっしゃるわけですね。でも京都に行きたくても来れないわけですよ、コロナがあるから。じゃあもうできることはですね、じゃあ京都を別の形で表現できないかという話だったんですね。で私たちは皆さんに連絡して、 インパーソンじゃなくても、もしバーチャル京都らしい風景を出したら参加しますかっていうことを出したら、やっとですね、ここで2000人ぐらいが参加表明をしてくれたんですね。でその時に私たちは思い出したのが、こういうバーチャル空間を作って、この会議をやるということにしました。我々にとって初めていわゆるこうメタバースのような環境づくりに手がけたわけです。ここに書いてあるようにですね、実は京都のバスツアーでバスに乗ったらコンベンションビューローが作ったバスツアーにつながる。でギャラリーのところに行くと、そこでさまざまな展示が見れる。でまたカフェ空間あるんですけど、ちょっと自分が休憩したい時にカフェ空間に入ったら他の人たちもカフェ空間にいて、そこで話ができたりとか、あとは見逃した発表だとキャッチアップできると。で非常にある意味で我々にとってかなりメタバースとかバーチャル空間の存在が助かったわけですね。こういう形でそれぞれ瞬時にですね連絡を取って情報を出していくと。でこういう感じで大学の空間も載せたりとかですね、で大学を散歩できるというようなこともさせていただきました。でちょっと今私がスピーチしているような形で挨拶、開会の挨拶とかそういうのも一応メタバースでやると。で我々はこの時にインパーソンだったらどうだったのかちょっと分かんないんですが、非常にバーチャルで良かったなと。もう2000人のマネジメントができるわけですよね。でこういう感じで、させていただいて、ちょっとだけこのビデオもお見せしたいと思います。すいません、もう一回。すいません、テクノロジーでまた。はい。おかげさまで70カ国以上でこれリアルタイムに見ていただいたりとか、それぞれの場所でのイベントをリアルにインパーソンにやってもらって、それをこの仮想空間に一気に載せていただいて 皆さんが、こういうふうな形でですね、集まって、やりました。初めての、ちょっと経験だった、わけですが、ただ非常に、思ったよりかなり活発だったんですね。だからそういう意味で、リアルと、仮想を、こう混ぜるというところはすごい面白かったし、日本の狂言とかですね、さまざまな音楽イベントも、これも同じように、やったりとかで、ブックプライズを、やったりとかですね、皆さんは違う空間にはいる、違う世界、違う国にはいるんだけど、非常にこうメタバースという一つの空間につながって、それでいろんなことができるわけです。で非常に我々にとってこういう感じでですね、バーチャル展示空間があったりとか、さまざまなものがこういうふうにバーチャルを通して見えると。でそういうこう場所を作るということは非常に何よりもかなり面白かった。でこれが発表の数なんですけど、これを全部このメタバースの中ですることができたというのは非常にこう我々にとって新しい試み、本当に京都をどう表現するかとか何を入れるかとかというところも結構ディスカッションしてさせていただきましたというのがこの時の大きな経験ではありました。はい、ちょっとスライドに戻ります。そういうことでじゃあもう積極的にシェアラーニングとかそういうことをやろうということで私は今13大学の大学とですねシェアードキャンパスという今制度を作っています。でこのシェアードキャンパススイスが中心でその後香港シンガポールさまざまな国で一緒になってコンテンツをシェアすると。だから場所を移動しなくてもメタバースという空間一つあれば実は勉強のコンテンツができる。で今やっと日本でも積極的にメタバースを教育の中に入れていくということが始まっています。これも情報はいろいろ見ていくとメタバースが積極的に教育の中にマイナスではなくてもっと教育を非常にこう拡張していくということが言われております。ここにちょっと書いてあるのが Metaverse technology have the potential to transform school lessons, bring teachers and students together remotely in shared spaces, enhance vocational training, and create new opportunities for lifelong learning。 非常にある意味でメタバースがあることによって学校あるいはキャンパス教員と学生の関係が変わっていくということをかなり積極的にやっています。皆さんは今日本でもですね非常にこの知のウィズドムとかメタバースを積極的に導入していこうじゃないかということが行われています。今この ME キャンパスというメタバーススクールというのが2023年にオープンされたという情報もありました。また来年の学生を探しています。まだこれはちょっと高校のレベルではありますが見ていただくと1年間のコースでハイスクールの3年間の部分があるというふうに言われております。こういうふうにやっていくと拡大するだけではなくてもともと教育の機会がない人たちにまでも教育が与えられるというようなことを場が与えられるというのが非常に重要じゃないかなというふうに思っています。でそういう意味で今日本でも大学の国際展開と同時にメタバースの可能性をやっています。ちょっと私自身も今入っている文科省の一つの委員会の中でもちょっと SGU スーパーグローバルユニバーシティの後にどういうものを作っていくかということは少し検討をしている最中ではありますが、国が非常に大きな予算もつけて積極的にそういうちょっとランニングスペースを作れということであります。皆さんはもしご存知でなければぜひ見ていただければと思いますがこのジャパン・ヴィーチュアル・キャンパスという新しいこのプラットフォームができています。筑波大学はかなりさまざまな取り組みをやっていると思いますがここの中で 日本に来なくても多くの外国人が日本語であったりとか、日本のコンテンツ、歴史、いろんなものが学ぶことができる。だからメタバースというのはそういう可能性を与えてくれるというところであります。この JV キャンパスのポータルに入っていくと、ページの中にいろんな空間があって、いろんな出会いがあって、そこでいろんな取り組みがなされているということが分かります。で、メタバースというのは我々にこれまでなかった、あるいはちょっとコロナで目覚めた、実は新しいものではないかというふうに私は思っています。で、最近メタバースをもっとプロモーションしていこうよというところで、さまざまなところでメタバースエクスポとかいろんなことはやられております。で、私が関わっているエクスポ2025年大阪の方でも積極的にバーチャルエクスポとかですね、メタバース空間を使ってエクスポをやっていこうというような話があります。この中でもエクスポの空間ではあるんですけど、もう限りがある空間で、しかも限りがある人しか来ないので、このエクスポの中でもここに来なくてもさまざまな楽しみができるというのが今エクスポで考えている中身でございます。そういう意味でメタバースというのは非常に我々これからまだ計り知れない可能性を与えてくれるんじゃないかというふうに私は思っております。今その中でもオープンイノベーションとメタバースをかけていこうというようなところが取り組みをやっている人たちもいます。そういう意味で日本の総理大臣もこのデジタルトランスフォーメーションの予算の中にメタバース NFT を入れるということを宣言しております。このソサイティ 5.0 またソサイティ 6.0 の時代の中でメタバースの可能性をですね、我々がもっともっと知り、あるいはそれを活用していくということを私は願っております。私の話はちょっとまとまりがなかったんですが、言いたかったのが、本当に我々がコロナまであんまりそんなに馴染みがなかった、知ってたけどあまりそんなに大切にしなかったものが、私自身はアイカスの出来事でメタバースそのものの偉大さを感じ、あるいはそれに助けられたということもありますので、皆さんもこれからもっともっとメタバースに関わっていただければなというふうに思っております。私の話は以上とさせていただきたいと思います。ありがとうございました。
臼井佐子会長、ありがとうございました。もうね、映像を見せていただきながら私もワクワクしてきたんですけれども、メタバースの可能性というのをね、今とっても感じられたことと思います。また子どもたちの教育の中にもどんどんこのメタバースというのが入り込んできていて、なんか本当に楽しい明るい未来が今この一瞬だけでも想像できましたので、これから国もね、たくさんの予算もつけてくださっているということですので、ますます今後楽しみにしたいと思います。またね、今ご紹介いただきました2025年のエキスポの方でもね、本当にもうバーチャルリアリティの世界がね、待っているということなので、楽しみにしたいと思います。佐子会長、ありがとうございました。では今日ですね、今佐子会長の講演をしていただいたんですが、この後いろんなプログラムの中に佐子会長もご参加いただけるご予定ではあったんですが、今ご紹介もいただいたエキスポの方ですね、大阪万博のことで急遽重要な招集がかかってしまったということを伺っております。この後佐子会長の方はご退席になってしまいますけれども、どうぞご了承いただきまして、またねエキスポ楽しみにしたいと思いますので、ご活躍をお祈りしております。では次のプログラムに移らせていただきます。次はオンラインでの講演となりますが、つながっておりますでしょうか。次にご登場いただきますのは IEEE スタンダーズアソシエーションの会長で、国際メタバース協会名誉会長でいらっしゃいますユー・ユアン様です。本日は大変ね、近頃ビザの申請が厳しくなっておりまして、残念ながら今日お越しいただくことができなくなってしまいました。 ですがオンラインでつながりましてご講演をいただけるというふうに伺っております。ユアン様はつながってますでしょうか。大丈夫でしょうか。ではユアン様、どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。ちょっと音声の方が今聞こえておりませんので、ちょっとご調整をいただこうと思います。お待ちくださいませ。今回は海外からもたくさんの方がお見えになる予定ではあったんですが、コロナが明けたと言いましてもまだまだ、来日していただくのが大変ということもございます。ビザの申請が間に合わずということで、今回も十数名の方がお越しいただけなくなってしまいました。本当に残念なことなんですが、このようにオンラインでつながったり、あと映像を送っていただいたりということで、本日のプログラムは進めてまいります。どうぞ皆様リアルでお会いできなくてとても残念ではあるんですけれども、本日一日楽しんでいただこうと思っておりますので、どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。では今ちょっと音声の方も調整をさせていただきますので、このままお待ちくださいませ。
袁老师，麻烦你测试一下声音。您把那个声音打开一下，麦克打开。
Okay, I think we are good now. So good morning. Of course, there's some technical problem, and I'm supposed to be here in Kyoto in person with you, but it took much longer than I expected to renew my Japanese visa. So the visa agency told me that I'm going to get my passport back, well, maybe in a couple of hours. So if that happens,
I will come to Kyoto this evening. Hopefully, I can join you for the dinner. But for now, I have to give my talk in the metaverse way, in the virtual way. So let me share with you my slides. I believe you are already seeing my slides. Let's talk about metaverse as the next biggest thing, and I'm going to address the synergistic acceleration of metaverse and AI development. So, oh, by the way, I should also mention that IEEE Standards Association, we are proud to co-organize this event, the second Japan International Metaverse Conference, and we're also co-branding this event as a special session, the Kyoto Summit of the IEEE Metaverse Congress Series. So thank you so much for the great efforts of the Japan International Metaverse Association, particularly Hiromi-san. So let's talk about what happened during the past few months. There are three moments shown on my picture. So the first one was like in March, along with the rise of ChatGPT, when ChatGPT started getting lots of attentions from the public. There was this picture on social media saying that ChatGPT was getting all the attention and the metaverse was sort of out of favor and the NFT was already dead deeply under the water. And then uh, a couple of weeks later, the situation got even worse. There was a picture saying that metaverse is dead. Rest in peace, 2021 to 2023. But then in June, as we all know, Apple released the Vision Pro. Then the situation or the trend that in the social media changed a little bit. Some people started saying that ChatGPT is dead because Apple launched the Vision Pro, which was indeed a huge endorsement or validation for the XR and the metaverse industry. I could, of course, agree with that. But of course, people are saying that lots of things are happening and you don't want to fall behind. So what is the real situation? Many people are very confused. If we look at the metaverse technology landscape, we will say that metaverse technology basically includes three core technology categories. We call that extended senses and actions, and persistent virtual worlds, and digital finance and economy. Uh, in other words, you can call them like spatial computing, persistent computing, and consensus computing, respectively. So spatial computing is basically what we traditionally called XR or VR, AR, and MR. But I'm not using the term VR or AR or XR here because if we talk about VR or XR, typically they will mean much more than simply the hardware. They also include content, software, and the ecosystem. So in terms of extended senses actions, which are basically the uh, XR or spatial computing in a narrow sense, you will need artificial intelligence to help you, let's say, enable different interfaces, help the devices understand the world, understand the users. And also in the second category, the persistent virtual worlds, in other words, how to create and operate a persistent virtual world, you will need different engines to support modeling and designing and different types of digital content creation technologies, including PGC, UGC, and of course AIGC, to support and to build various virtual maps, virtual scenes, virtual objects, and virtual characters. And lastly, in digital finance and economy, we are talking about digital assets, including but not limited to virtual assets, which may or may not be built upon decentralization, and the decentralization may or may not be built upon blockchain. But we also need artificial intelligence to enable some parts of this structure. And under these core technologies, there are supporting technologies: computation, storage, communications and networking, data and knowledge, and of course, intelligence. Here we talk about AI and machine learning algorithms. So the point here is that AI is an integral part of the metaverse technology landscape. So let's talk about why we are saying that the real trend or the real situation is that AI will boost the development of metaverse, will accelerate the development of metaverse. So let's address this from two sides. Supply side, AI, particularly generative AI, will help enrich the content, drive intelligent NPCs, non-player characters, understand the words, and also help the device understanding the users. So large scale and fine grained virtual worlds, especially massive and diverse virtual things and virtual objects, will be created at a much faster speed with the aid of generative AI, and millions or even billions of virtual characters will be driven by generative AI to provide deeply personalized interactive experiences and services. So I also put a simple assessment regarding how AI will help different types of metaverses: the VR style metaverse, the AR style metaverse, and the digital twin style metaverse. You can say that AI will be playing different levels of roles to help enrich the content, drive intelligent NPCs, understanding the worlds, and understanding the users. But from the demand side, that is probably even more important. So this picture shows the labor market transformation driven by generative AI. The picture is actually the distribution of people's skill level on any single profession or any single skill. So let's say before we have generative AI, the distribution of people's skill level is like a pyramid. Like 20% or 25% of people, uh, their skill level is above average, which means they can call themselves professionals, and they can make money by doing that. But generative AI is actually increasing people's skill level. So the new distribution is like a platoon, which means only, let's say, 1% or 2% of people can still call themselves professionals because their skill level is still above average, which means they can still make a living doing that as a job. But the majority or the super majority of people, their skill level, even with increase by generative AI, their skill level is now below average, which means they are not eligible, or they do not deserve to make money from doing that kind of job. So the conclusion is that many people will have to look for new job opportunities or enjoy fewer working hours and more leisure time. To accommodate these needs in metaverses is probably the most sustainable and cost-effective approach. Because let's say if you want to accommodate new job opportunities in our current world, or if you want to provide more facilities for like recreational facilities and services in our current world, current universe, we will be facing another problem, which is called sustainability. So probably the only practical way is to use metaverses to uh, address this demand, address this new job opportunities and the needs for fewer working hours and more leisure time, which means AI will make metaverse become like a rigid demand. And let's look at how metaverse will in turn help the development of AI. So we know that more and more people are talking about the generation of capabilities of large models, and the so-called embodied AI, and of course the so-called AGI, the emergence of artificial general intelligence. So those kind of further development of AI will require a real world training environment. so that they will have massive multimodal training data. So how to provide such kind of a training environment? If we're talking about using our real world, our physical world, it's very risky and it's very expensive. But using metaverse can provide such a training environment with the lowest cost and risk, and the highest efficiency and diversity. So metaverse can accelerate the development of AI. So my opinion is that the new paradigm for AI research and development would be training AI in metaverses. Actually, this is not something new. This is already happening in some particular industries. For example, the autonomous driving industry. So in the autonomous driving industry, almost all the companies they are actually testing their autonomous driving cars, testing their autonomous driving algorithms on virtual roads. After millions or even billions of virtual miles, they will put their cars on the real world. In this way, they can save lots of money, save lots of carbon emissions, and also avoid lots of risks. So this is already a common practice in the industry. So the conclusion is that we are actually so it's not like AI is replacing metaverse or metaverse is replacing AI. We are actually between two stages of this digital transformation. If we look at the history of digital transformation, there are 5 different stages from automation to interconnection to personalization, and then we are currently under the phase intelligentization, which means we will see the use of AI in multiple industries, almost everywhere. We will see generative AI enabled generative content and also enabled services. And we will see the rise of artificial general intelligence. But on the horizon, it's the upcoming metaverse, or in other words, you can call that realitization. So thanks to the digital technologies that human beings we have accumulated during the past decades, for the first time, we will be able to create new realities. We will be able to create new universes. Of course, I'm talking about digital realities and digital universes. So the point here is that we are currently between two stages of digital transformation: the exploding intelligentization and the upcoming realitization, aka metaverse. And also, metaverse will be the next biggest thing. Why I'm saying that? So let's say this is probably the most inclusive definition for metaverse. There are two different views. The experiential view says that metaverse is actually consisting of 3 different categories. It could be a digital and different universe. In other words, virtual reality. It could be a digital extension of our current universe, aka, well, in other words, augmented reality. And it could be a digital counterpart of our current universe, in other words, digital twin. But there's also the functional view. So people are saying metaverse is the next version of World Wide Web. We call that Web 3.0 or even Web 4.0, according to the latest report from the European Commission. And many people are also talking about the metaverse is the next generation of the internet and also the next stage of digital transformation. So on the top, we see lots of applications of metaverse in consumer space, government space, industry space, and of course academic space. I highlighted the association here because associations like the our IEEE Standards Association and also the Japan International Metaverse Association, we are playing an important role to put everything together to build the ecosystem to serve as a catalyst or a glue for the growth of the metaverse industry. But talking about AI again, my opinion is that AI is transforming forces of production and the relations of production. But the metaverse will actually redefine production. and redefine our life. So that's why I'm saying metaverse is the next biggest thing. We should also look at sustainability. So many people are concerned about if metaverse will be not sustainable. So of course, we need to develop and build metaverse infrastructure with low energy consumption and low carbon emissions. But the major trend would be metaverse will help us transfer more and more activities from the real world to digital worlds, which means we will have the opportunities to significantly reduce energy consumption and carbon emissions. Also, metaverse can be used in environmental protection education, climate change research, and other fields to provide more support for global climate change. Recently, we IEEE Standards Association we co-sponsored an award with AWE for we call that XR prize for climate change. Actually, that competition generated lots of impacts and positively contributed to the greater sustainability. So collectively, we will say that metaverse will provide an effective path to promote sustainable development and address climate change. So what IEEE has been doing, first of all, we started the IEEE Metaverse Congress series, which is a series of virtual or hybrid sessions to provide a global and a comprehensive view of the metaverse. As of today, we have conducted totally 15. Well, if we consider the Kyoto session is the ongoing session, totally 16 sessions all over the world. So this event has been one of the best known events in the global metaverse industry. And we have established the first standards committee on metaverse in major global and international SDOs. Um, we have many ongoing projects and standards development efforts explicitly addressing metaverse, like the 2048 addressing metaverse terminology, definitions, and taxonomy, and the 1716 and the 1716.1 addressing ecosystems, the ethics of metaverse, and other efforts addressing identity and energy application, reference architecture for metaverse financial systems, and so on. We also have two very special programs. We call that industry connections. One is to address the persistent computing. Another one is addressing the decentralized metaverse. As you could recall, I briefly mentioned a couple of minutes ago that we are saying metaverse core technologies include consensus computing, persistent computing, and spatial computing. So these two IC activities are addressing consensus computing and persistent computing respectively. And but there are many other IEEE standards and projects which are still also relevant to metaverse, but are not explicitly named after metaverse. So you can simply visit the website metaverse.ieee.org. It's very simple, metaverse.ieee.org. It's a one-stop portal for you to get access to all the IEEE metaverse-related projects, efforts, and events. So I'm also trying to let's say I'd like to briefly talk about another new program we are actually working on in preparation. So this is the so-called IEEE ISTO Metaverse Acceleration and Sustainability Association, MASA. So the mission is to accelerate the development of metaverse-related technologies, ecosystems, and markets across the world, and to do so in a sustainable manner, supporting sustainable development goals, contributing to greater sustainability and humanity. So we will have 7 different work streams. We will deliver metaverse landscape outlook and roadmaps. We will develop open standards, conformity assessment, and certification for metaverse in a faster lane. We will develop open source reference implementations and pilot applications, and we will provide a digital assets pool and exchange to support and build the ecosystem for metaverse related digital economy. And we will organize competitions and rankings to drive or to encourage innovation. and we will do advocacy and lobbying for the broader, much broader acceptance and adoption of metaverse. And lastly, we will coordinate for responsible development of metaverse. There are five principles, in our opinion, for metaverse development: safety, privacy, ethics, inclusion, and sustainability. So please join us to accelerate the takeoff of metaverse industry for sustainability and humanity. So this concludes my presentation, and I leave my contact information on the screen. Feel free to drop me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
ゆうゆうあん様、ありがとうございました。はい、EEE スタンダーズアソシエーションの会長のゆうゆうあん様にオンラインにてご講演をいただきました。メタバース as the next biggest thing ということでテーマで、はい、お話をいただきました。日本にね、来られなかったということでしたけれども、オンラインの方でつながって、この後もゆうゆうあん様には何度かご登場をいただきたいと思います。では続いての講演に移らせていただきます。続いてはメタバース標準フォーラムの議長で NVIDIA 開発者エコシステムの副社長でいらっしゃいますニール・ドレベット様にご講演をいただきます。本日は映像でのご参加となっております。インターナショナルコーポレーション for an Interoperable Metaverse と題しましてご講演をいただきます。それでは映像のご準備よろしいでしょうか。ごゆっくりとお聞きください。
Hello everyone, I am Neil Trevitt, Vice President of Developer Ecosystems at NVIDIA, President of the Kronos Group Standards Organization for over 20 years, and I am also serving as the President of the newly formed Metaverse Standards Forum. I want to thank the IEEE, the Metacom organizers, and especially Dr. Yuan for the opportunity to give an update on the forum today. There is a lot of discussion about what form the metaverse will take, but I think many agree that it will combine the social and economic connectivity of the web with the advanced user interfaces and immersiveness of spatial computing. The industry is correct to be paying attention as we explore the possibilities of bringing together multiple disruptive technologies. These include artificial intelligence that enables magical capabilities such as natural user interfaces and user-generated 3D content. There's GPU-powered real-time photorealistic graphics and physical simulation, augmented and virtual reality, the promise of decentralized trust and storage through Web3, and advanced networking such as 5G and beyond. Companies should ensure that they will be the disruptors and not the disrupted as this revolution unfolds around us. And how will we enable these diverse technologies to work together at pervasive scale? The answer, of course, is open interoperability standards. Many see the power of games and applications breaking out of their current silos and participating in a much larger economic and social network. And how will that be enabled? Open interoperability standards as well. Also, many believe that the metaverse will indeed be the next evolution of the web, a platform entirely based on open interoperability standards. In fact, it's going to take a constellation of standards to build an open metaverse, involving the work of dozens, if not hundreds, of standards organizations. This was the reason the Metaverse Standards Forum was created. The industry is attempting to build an open platform with an unprecedented level of interoperability. And so we need a new and unique venue for cooperation and coordination between standards organizations and the wider industry. So we have the Metaverse Standards Forum, and the forum is not another standards organization. It does not create standards itself. The forum is unique in existing to assist the existing standards organizations to create effective standards for the metaverse through enabling coordination to avoid duplication and gaps in the standardization landscape, and providing a close connection to industry to gather real-world use cases and requirements. As the forum is not a standards organization, it provides a neutral venue that is welcoming to any organization, with free membership tiers, no patent licensing obligations, and not even an NDA, as all forum materials are made publicly available. The forum also develops its own deliverables, such as Metaverse Standards Register, to help everyone navigate the Metaverse standards landscape, together with recommendations and guidelines for deploying standards and pragmatic action-based projects to accelerate testing and adoption of standards, such as implementation prototyping, pilots and testbeds, plugfests, and open source tooling. The Metaverse Standards Forum was initially bootstrapped and funded by the Kronos Group that recognized the increased level of interests in standardization and the urgent need for cooperation. The forum launched in June 2022 with 37 founding organizations, but that membership has since grown to over 2,500 members, confirming the level of industry interest in building the metaverse on a foundation of open standards. Given this level of participation, Kronos recently completed the transition of the forum to an independent, self-funded, non-profit industry consortium in April 2023. Incorporation has not changed the forum's mission. We are still not a standards organization and are still focused on identifying interoperability gaps and friction points that can be solved through pragmatic cooperation. We like to say that the forum is not trying to design the metaverse cathedral, but rather is helping to bake the bricks that we know we're going to need one day in its construction, to create a wavefront of short-term interoperability and business opportunities that will unfold as the metaverse evolves. The 2,500 forum members are from all over the world and include standards organizations, leading universities, organizations advocating for legislation and best practices, and a range of hardware, content, tools, and platform companies, from the largest corporations to single-person startups. This creates a unique opportunity to gather global, diverse requirements and expertise, and to drive widespread visibility and pragmatic cooperation on metaverse standardization with a meaningful participation that can make a significant difference in the industry. But such a large membership also creates interesting challenges on how to organize for effective action and decision-making. The forum follows a consensus-based, bottom-up, three-step process to identify projects where the forum membership wishes to focus. The first step is to live poll the membership so they can suggest their most important metaverse-related topics. And we currently have a list of over 200 topics and growing. Step 2 is to gather those topics together into a few dozen domains and for the membership to upvote those they consider to be most important. The list of domains here is sorted according to current membership priorities and contains both technical domains, such as 3D asset interoperability, digital twins, avatars, apparel, and user identity, but also non-technical topics, including privacy, security, and inclusion, which actually has been voted to number 1, an indication of the interest in ensuring the metaverse avoids some of the mistakes of today's social media environment. The third step is to create focused domain groups under agreed charters to execute pragmatic projects focused on solving interoperability issues in those domains that will provide immediate benefits to benefit the members and the wider industry. Any member may propose and participate in domain groups, and the forum maintains a pipeline of proposals for exploratory groups that meet to build consensus on working group charters. If a charter has strong member interest and it is approved, then the working group begins to work to execute the projects in its charter to produce publicly available deliverables. A number of working groups are already up and running and include creating a public database or register of metaverse-related standards, 2 working groups focused on 3D asset interoperability from both the 3D graphics and the digital rights perspective, a group focused on geospatial and digital twin standards to connect the real and virtual worlds, and a group working to define networking requirements for metaverse applications. Groups still in the exploratory phase include standardization around avatars and the apparel they will wear, end-user privacy and security, and a group focused on how metaverse standards will be integrated into the web stack itself. With the number of active domain groups in a forum, there are often multiple domain group meetings happening in any one day, and I want to acknowledge the efforts of the domain group chairs that are so vital to their success. So this is the structure of the forum since we have recently incorporated. Any organization can join to become a participant member for free, to participate in any forum domain groups that interest them. Organizations that want to have a voice and a vote in the management and the direction of the forum can become principal members through paying a membership fee that scales from $50 for a single person company up to $10,000 for the largest corporation. Principal members may participate in oversight of the domain group pipeline and stand for election and vote in board elections. The forum is a non-profit, and so any membership dues are used to fund forum operations and projects. To enable participation by diverse organizations, membership fees are waived for non-profits and standardization organizations, and the forum is enabled through its bylaws to create liaisons with standards bodies that may be unable to join another organization directly. Before I finish, I think it's important to recognize there is also some confusion and skepticism around the term the metaverse since it started getting widely used at the end of 2021. This is understandable as the final destination on the road to the metaverse is not yet clear, and asking someone what the metaverse will be in 20 years is like asking someone sitting in front of the Netscape browser in 1994 to imagine the disruptive power of applications such as Amazon and Uber. Meanwhile, many discussions over-associate the metaverse with one particular technology, and so many imagine you have to use a VR headset to use the metaverse. And although that will often provide the most immersive experiences, many people will not want or need to be isolated from their surroundings and would rather access metaverse apps through phones and PCs, just as they do with 3D games today. Many have also associated the metaverse with the wild west of cryptocurrencies and NFTs, but they are not essential for the spatial web, and we should remember that Web3 is a much younger technology than 3D graphics, XR, or AI. And so we should be patient as reliable systems for decentralized trust and transactions evolve. And lastly, there have been some rather breathless market forecasts for the metaverse before we even really know what the metaverse is going to be. My best suggestion is to ignore the hype and focus instead on how metaverse technologies can begin to help your business or organization today. It is an often overlooked value of standardization activities that involve multiple organizations in that they can provide the thread of continuity for industry forward progress as technologies, platforms, and market positions and hype cycles swirl and evolve. So that is the end of my presentation. I hope this has been helpful and that some in the audience may wish to join the forum and help progress the mission of your organization. You will be very welcome. The broad participation in the forum and its close connection to industry is a unique opportunity for cooperation to build the metaverse standards that we all need through gathering meaningful industry requirements and expertise, and to promote broad visibility of our collective efforts. We warmly invite any organization to join the forum, to propose, lead, participate, or lurk and monitor forum domain groups that are helpful in accelerating your own objectives. But although we can't know precisely what form the metaverse is going to take, I do believe it will be far better if we build it together. Thank you.
ありがとうございました。今、ニール・トレペット様のご講演をお聞きいただきました。では続いてもう一方映像にてご講演をいただきます。アウトブレイス CEO 兼創設者でアニモカブランズ創設者兼会長でいらっしゃいますやっとしう様より映像をいただいております。本日はステートオブメタバース NFTs ゲーミング&エデュケーションということでご講演をいただきます。それでは映像をご覧ください。
Hi, my name is Yatsu. I'm chairman and co-founder of Animoca Brands. And it's a pleasure to be speaking to you about the metaverse, non-fungible token, gaming, and education. Lots of topics in a very short period of time. Very briefly, Animoca Brands is an ecosystem player. We have made over 450 investments in the area of Web3 and blockchain, broadly speaking. And we also have a number of subsidiaries, such as the Sandbox, Rev Racing, TinyTap, and a whole bunch of others, all trying to deliver true digital property rights to ensure that we can have essentially our digital self-sovereignty in this next iteration of the internet known as Web3. When people talk about the metaverse, they often think of VR and goggles. They often think of Meta's version of the metaverse. But we think of these as interfaces in a way in which we can explore our digital identities. What we refer to when we talk about the metaverse is commonly known as the open metaverse, powered by blockchain and generally referred to as a framework of Web3, in which you can have ownership. In the open metaverse, there are millions of people today already who are effectively employed, who are already engaging in capitalist endeavors, doing businesses, and essentially doing businesses to the tune of essentially economies the size of Cyprus or Iceland and 100 other nations when it comes to the size and scale in which they're operating in. What powers these virtual economies isn't just software developers, but people who engage in them, who basically sort of play games in them, for instance, as we've seen as well, and also who create products and services and experiences, which I'll get to in a little bit later. Now, one of the other interesting things about these economies is that they're powered in many cases by decentralized autonomous organizations that are entirely community run. Over $12 billion of value is currently locked in these DAOs that are not run by VCs or large organizations, but they're run by these communities that I had just shared with you who have control over these ecosystems, kind of like this sort of mini nations, as it were. The banking ecosystem that powers the open metaverse is known as DeFi, which I know you've heard a lot about. And DeFi effectively is like a banking infrastructure where you can have lending, where you can basically do trading, but in an open manner. So not what we see in centralized exchanges, but in these decentralized exchanges out there, or the likes of like Uniswap or PancakeSwap and that type. And while the total value of TVL of DeFi lock values come down a little bit since last year, we're still talking about $70 to $80 billion, which is essentially the size of national banks in terms of total assets. So the state essentially of the metaverse continues to evolve in terms of the sort of financial rails that help basically activate many of these communities. Then you also have the regulatory front. For instance, you have places like Hong Kong and of course Japan as well that have really sort of started to push Web3 narratives. They're trying to really promote Web3 and blockchain technology and even allowed for crypto retail trading in terms of people sort of engaging in the space. Hong Kong doesn't only just want to be a leader for the region, but is advancing itself to try to become a global leader in digital assets. Followed, of course, with the fact that its powerful neighbor in Beijing has released a white paper for Web3 innovation and development, and also most recently has also started talking about on national TV about Bitcoin in basically sort of China national TV that you can buy Bitcoin in Hong Kong, for instance. So perhaps it's all just a happy coincidence. But in some ways, you could say perhaps there's a larger agenda at play. So let me sort of describe a little bit why all of this is so important and why different countries around the world, not just sort of Hong Kong or Southeast Asia, or even sort of Japan and so on, are really pushing Web3 and believe that this is the future of the next iteration of the internet. And it all comes down to this, which is basically control of data and the value of data. Because data basically is this most valuable of resources. It has unlimited network effects. And the more data there is, the more data gets gravity and the more powerful data becomes, as we know today. But there's one situation that's changed in the world of Web2 industry most of us currently live today, which is that all this value that we create with data actually doesn't accrue to its end users that actually generate that value. We are, in fact, the product, but we're also the ones that people sell to because we're creating all this value. Think of it in the example of something like Instagram. We share photos on Instagram, we post them, and that creates incredible amounts of information, and the platform itself is able to create knowledge from that. So we're effectively working for the platform, but we don't receive any value back for it. So why is that a fair arrangement? That's because we don't know any better. We're surrendering our data daily, and we're willingly giving it up to all of the platforms that are out there, who then create these limitless network effects. And so we created a world today where we consider ourselves somewhat digitally colonized, right? We are dependent on platforms, whether it's Apple, whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook, right? These companies basically rule our digital existences. Those million followers you might have on Instagram aren't actually your followers. They can decide to take it away from you at any time. And that's because they are the platform and we are giving them value. We're effectively quasi-employed by giving them all of our data. But if you think about it, actually, if we didn't give them our data, then they wouldn't have the value that they have today, for instance. And after all, if it wasn't for our data, you wouldn't have things like ChatGPT. You wouldn't have self-driving cars. We are the source of their power, and yet that power doesn't rest with us. It rests basically with the platforms. And that is why Web3 and the metaverse is so important. Because in the construct of Web3, we can now have ownership of that data. We can have ownership of our digital assets that we have created, and we can have a stake in the networks that we help co-create. In Web 1, we're obviously just reading to the web. In Web 2, we were writing to the web. And that writing came in the form of data and made it all powerful. And now, of course, we need to have a way in which we can reclaim the value of the data that we've created and have a share in that. And that is the power of Web3. And that's why we say that we're all about true digital property rights, because Web3 gives the ability for us to have digital property rights, an ability to own a piece of the network, a piece of the internet, as it were. But why is property rights so important? Well, when you take it from the physical perspective, and you take it from the angle of owning a car, we all own distributed and decentralized ownership of cars. And when you think of that, the value of the ownership of the car comes from the fact that thousands and thousands of other businesses have created value-added services on top of these cars. And they don't have to seek for permission. They don't have to go to Tesla or to Volkswagen or to Mercedes and say, am I allowed to basically build a baby seat, or can I create an Uber-like service or a Lyft-like service for your car? No, you can just go to the owner of the car and conduct business with him. And you can do all sorts of services out there. And there's a reason why you can have financing for your car, or services like Uber and Lyft, or people making tires, and all the employment and economic opportunity that comes from the ownership of cars is far greater than the sale of the car itself. And every aspect of our physical life is driven in this manner. But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond just the fact that decentralized ownership gives us more network effects that we can build and construct business from. It also speaks to our digital identity. So here's an example of a Birkin bag in comparison to a Bored Ape, which you've probably heard of many times before. What is it that makes a Bored Ape more valuable than this bag, which is actually a physical thing? But if you think about it a little bit more deeply, how many people buy this Birkin bag so they can put things in it? Most of them buy it as a sense of social identity or social status, or things that mean to them something in a personal way. In fact, all the clothing that we purchase doesn't have to be expensive. Why do we choose to wear clothes with different colors, for instance? These all speak to our social identity. So we acquire and purchase things because they mean something to ourselves, because they mean something to our culture. And we do this with our shoes, with the places we live, even with the cars we buy. And in that sense, non-fungible tokens represent that in a digital context. And they represent essentially a way in which we can store our social cultural identities. And this may not seem sort of very far-fetched when you think of it from the gaming world, because in the gaming world, we spend close to $100 billion already on virtual goods. And these virtual goods are mostly whimsical in nature, like skins in your favorite games, or trinkets or items that are purely decorative, as we do in the physical world. But what is it that ties all of this together? Why is it so important? Why do we spend this kind of money on sort of virtual trinkets and virtual goods? And it comes down to this element, which is culture. arts and culture has always been a very important part of any economy. And this is an example how it's the second largest sort of driver of economic activity in the US for employment, like films and Hollywood and the gaming industries, close to $1 trillion a couple of years ago. I think it's actually sort of close to hitting $1 trillion perhaps this year. But when you think about what culture really hits beyond the people who are directly working in it, when you look at things, for instance, like retail and trade or outdoor recreation, actually turns out that culture touches almost everything that we do. Because in retail and trade, what is it that you're buying? Yes, you're buying clothes to wear, but you're actually wearing things that express your personal cultural identity. You're choosing a certain kind of shoe, but it's not because they make you run faster, because they say something about you. When you think, for instance, the gaming industry, how much of the gaming industry has driven things like, for instance, gaming equipment and GPUs, right? These things that we purchase have actually come from cultural context. There wouldn't be a Netflix if there wasn't Hollywood, if there wasn't people making content, for instance, right? You wouldn't have an HBO. How many people would be buying Apple devices or Xboxes if there was no gaming industry that was sort of, promoting different kinds of digital culture? Meaning that culture is perhaps the biggest economic sink in the world for any sort of nation economy and denotes some of the health of an economy. And the same is true for the metaverse. The deeper its cultural context, the closer the cultural context, the more economic activity in the cultural context, the healthier the economy is as well. And we can see this essentially in elements such as the sandbox, for instance, and other sort of metaverse platforms, where it's not just about the virtual land, which a lot of people talk about, it's about the culture that is embedded with it. Are you neighbors with Snoop Dogg, for instance? Or do you like the environment? And you think about it just in your own gaming world, it's not necessarily related to the sandbox. Why do you join this game? It's fun to play, but don't you join it because you want to play with your friends, or you want to meet new friends, for instance, or because you want to make connections, or because there's a certain culture embedded in it? You join it for social and cultural reasons, and you stay for that. And that's basically what we see in the metaverse, but in this case, you have actual ownership. You're not dependent on a platform. Like in Sandbox, that land is your land, and you can develop it. You're free to trade it if you want, or sort of transact with it in whichever manner you want, and you're not dependent on the platform to tell you what you can and cannot do with it. Unlike, for instance, in a centralized platform, which actually leases you the land effectively for a kind of use as opposed to ownership. And just as we have in the physical world, physical ownership gives you rights, gives you capital formation, and the ability to build economic opportunities on top of it. Like if you don't own your physical real estate, you can't go to a bank and get a mortgage, for instance. You can't finance it. You can't invest in something that you don't know you actually own for long term. Imagine a restaurant owner actually, building a restaurant and investing in it, knowing he only has 6 months or 1 year to build on it. It's a very different kind of investment if someone knew that he owned this property for decades and he could basically invest in it for the long term. And that is the reason why in the physical world, the kind of countries that have very strong property rights, like the US, or Europe, or parts of Asia, have also the highest GDPs in the world, because there's a strong correlation between digital property rights and prosperity of nations. Whereas the countries that have very low property rights have very low GDPs, tend to be the poorest amongst the world. It also has correspondingly lower freedoms, meaning the kind of countries that have strong property rights, the respect for that, are also typically the countries that have much, much stronger freedoms, broadly speaking, as a nation. And we think the same is going to be true in the internet, meaning with Web3. Those type of places that have a strong respect for digital property rights will ultimately also have a respect for digital freedoms, because those are something that are very much tied to each other. Whereas today, in the Web2 paradigm, think about what freedoms do you really have. You think you have the freedom of expression, but actually, the platforms can remove you at any time. And it's not based on sort of a judiciary. It's based entirely on their whim, on their mood, on someone's personal decision, if they so feel like. And that's basically the world we live in Web2, and Web3 we can change that. So in this sort of digital property rights regime, we can basically develop more prosperity and more freedom for people in Web3. And to some extent, we're already seeing this effect taking place. Last year in 2022, in what was obviously a big bear market, NFTs still did about $24 billion in sales. But what's important isn't the $24 billion in sales. It's that 90% went to creators and owners of these NFTs. In stark contrast to the Web2 royalties paid by platforms like Spotify, it was only about $7 to $8 billion, which was paid to basically creators and owners of those music rights. And we all know that it's very difficult for a musician to make an actual living on Spotify. It's almost like a promotion platform because value isn't fairly distributed, because there's no paradigm in which the owners can actually share more in that value, which with property rights in the NFT space is possible. Bear also in mind that in the Web2 Spotify world, it's serving hundreds of millions of users, whereas in Web3, we're still only millions of users, meaning we can sort of take a view as to what would happen when we go from millions of users to potentially hundreds of millions of users into the Web3 space. What does it do to economic opportunity? And we think we don't have to look too far, in the sense that we don't just have to look at the example here I give you, but also an example of nation states going from feudal societies basically to sort of capitalist democracies, and how those economies grew because they started to embrace property rights. So I wanted to close a little bit with some additional examples of how property rights can change the world of education with Web3. And what we're doing with Open Campus here, working in collaboration, basically allowing publishers and teachers to create their educational content as NFTs, essentially making educational content a property, an actual sort of content platform itself, an asset. And basically, teachers are now able to make money by selling that content to others, and people can invest or buy them because that content might make yield in different platforms such as TinyTap. Because what actually happens is that holders of these NFTs, which essentially are like a property, are now able to earn the yield that's generated from that educational content. And in the first sale of these NFTs that took place late last year, some of the teachers made something between a year to a year and a half worth of their annual salary and started employing their friends to build businesses and partake in this opportunity. And more teachers started to look at this and say, hey, this is interesting. I should maybe do something there, because of course they're teaching during the day, but the content that they make, they can generate additional income as opposed to just be doing tutoring, for instance. And this is very exciting, because actually what this means is that you can take any content class and turn that actually into an asset class, right? And in the past, those type of asset classes needed to have a minimum type of revenue size to make sense to turn it into an asset, because the legal cost and the transaction costs would typically be too expensive to turn basically into a worthwhile asset. But with an NFT in Web3, you can do the same transaction essentially for just a few dollars and create the same value, which means that someone who might be a teacher that might only make $10 or $20 a month in places like Venezuela and might make only $100 selling this NFT in terms of the content it generates, could now enjoy the capital formation benefits of the asset that was created, meaning he might sell it for $500, for instance, which is essentially the equivalent of a 20% yield, and benefit from that and grow his business and economic opportunity in that way. Because now all sorts of content assets can now become essentially, content can now become essentially assets through that approach, not just with teachers in education. But that's obviously one of the big use cases. And in order to help fuel this, we also helped launch a $10 million Global Educators Fund. We're hoping anyone who's interested in sort of promoting education, wanting to create new content in their classroom, or promote maybe Web3 education, although that's not required, or sort of STEM programs, STEAM programs, or any kind of philosophical programs, can now apply at this $10 million Global Community Educators Fund at Open Campus to help drive forward the vision to make true digital property rights possible in the space of education and beyond. Thank you very much for your time, and it was a great pleasure sharing my thoughts with all of you. Thank you.
ありがとうございました。やっとシュウ様のご講演映像にてご覧をいただきました。各専門分野で皆様にはとってもね、勉強になっていることと思います。ではここで本日は特別ゲストといたしまして、オープン AI CEO のサム・アルトマン様にお時間を頂戴することにはなっていたんですけれども、残念ながら本当にご多忙中ということでして、都合がつかず今回は見送りとなってしまいました。ですが今度はぜひにということでね、次回に皆さんご期待をいただきたいと思います。ですのでサム・アルトマン様の代わりにといいますか、今度は素敵な講演をまたご覧いただこうと思います。続いてはスティーブ・マン様によりますご講演になりますが、マーシビティ・アトムスプラス・ビッツプラス・ジーンズ・トゥ・アドバンス・レシオプリカリー・イマーシブ・ Submerging Technologies for Earth and Humanity ということでご講演をいただきます。引き続き映像をご覧ください。
Okay, my name is Steve Mann, and I'm going to talk today about immersivity, which is technology that is immersive that you can submerse. That is reciprocally immersive technology, immersivity. That's the title of my talk, and it's sort of based on this idea of these three overlapping circles of nature, technology, and humanity. So I've got here, the first circle is planet Earth, which is the environment made of atoms. The second circle is technology, bits, which is the green circle represented by the cathode ray oscillograph screen, the oscilloscope screen, the green circle of technology from the original cathode ray tube with the green glow of the oscilloscope, and this one in particular here actually. And then the red circle represents humanity. The green circle, atoms, which starts with the Greek word atom starts with the Greek letter alpha, and beta for bits, and gamma for genes. Planet Earth is first. We have the blue circle first, sort of Earth first. And this is planet Earth from the Apollo 8 Earthrise, which is kind of an inspirational picture of looking at the planet. Planet Earth is blue, mainly because of the water. And the green here is the technology circle. This is the oscilloscope screen. And the red is humanity. Hemoglobin in the blood gives the red color. Just about every race and kind of human has redness. If you put your hand over a light bulb, it's going to show through red. So we have these three overlapping circles, forms kind of a Venn diagram, which we call immersivity. This is the idea. Immersivity is at the intersection of the physical world of nature, the virtual world and technological world, and the humanity, the world of humanity and sociality. So here, in a simplified form, we've got atoms, alpha, the environment, physical reality. The Greek word physikos means nature in Greek. And so we have also the world of bits, beta, virtual world, and we've got the world of genes, humanity, these three overlapping circles. Where these two circles intersect, we've got physical computing. Where these two circles intersect, you've got cyborg, metaverse, and so on. And where these two intersect, we've got just how we engage the natural world around us. The IEEE slogan, Advancing Technology for Humanity, really only considers two of these three circles, and in particular, technology and humanity is the technology circle beta and the humanity circle gamma. And so HCI, human computer interaction, or human metaverse, cyborg, these sorts of elements are right at the intersection of alpha, not alpha, but beta and gamma, ACM, HCI, and so on. MIT, on the other hand, looks at mens et manus, which means mind and hand. You could think of this as bits and atoms. MIT looks at these two circles, the bits and the atoms. Physical computing is where they intersect. So neither MIT nor the IEEE has the complete picture, but together these 2 points of view give us the complete picture, namely all three circles here. We look at MIT is these two, and the IEEE is these two. ACM is also these two. Together we have a complete picture, and that's kind of what we want to look at as immersivity here. Let's look at the first two, alpha and beta, the MIT atoms and bits, on the physical world alpha, you've got reality, physical reality, and on the virtual world, beta, you've got virtual reality, physical reality and virtual reality, PR and VR, if you will. We could think of these as axes, alpha and beta. And this forms a taxonomy, of course. You've got alpha, more or less physical reality, and beta, more or less virtual reality. And so this gives us a taxonomy with 4 quadrants, more or less of each. Now, augmented reality is some of the virtual world and some of the physical world. And so now we have 3 cells populated in this 2x2 taxonomy, leaving us, and this is of course, perhaps an example, leaving us with a empty cell at the lower left. What is that empty cell? We've got PR, AR, and VR. What is missing? And that is what we call DR, diminished reality. Diminished reality is when you have less of the physical world and less of the virtual world. A good example of diminished reality is dark sunglasses or a baseball cap, earplugs, HDR welding helmets. I've spent many years inventing, designing, and building HDR. HDR was one of my inventions I brought to MIT, and these welding helmets are examples of this sort of sensory attenuation and mediation. And so immersivity is this idea of technology that surrounds us but allows nature through. So let's consider total sensory deprivation as the origin here, and that is the float tank. Right at the origin, we have the float tank. A float tank is a device that blocks out reality, and of course you don't have your cell phone and text messages in there either. So it's kind of zero. Now we will hallucinate and think of things, perhaps. So doesn't mean zero activity in the brain, it just means zero stimulus. So it's a natural origin where alpha goes to 0 and beta goes to 0. Now if we come along the alpha axis to the physical world of atoms, a nice water swim is a great way to get stimulus and feel the world. If we jump into a cold, icy lake, it's very strong embracement of reality, a real dose of reality. Likewise, if we want only the virtual world, we take that same float tank and wear a VR headset. That's me in my office with a virtual reality headset, underwater VR headset, in the float tank, receiving only virtual world and none of the physical world. So here we have diminished reality, here we have physical reality, here we have virtual reality, and when we have both, we have the augmented reality overlay, say if we're doing an ice water swim with a head-up display with some overlay information. So we have these 4 quadrants in the alpha-beta plane. One of my inventions, of course, was this VR float tank. 1980s, 1990s, I did a lot of experiments with underwater virtual reality float tank, sensory deprivation float tank. So this is an example, of course, of pure VR taking out the physical and having only the virtual. Now, the other thing is extended reality, XR. This is a concept that Charles Wyckoff and I came up with in 1991. We called it extended reality, XR, and our idea was to take reality and interpolate between the various realities. You can think of this XR variable x as a mathematical variable. Let x be the space of all realities, and let x be an interpolating function that interpolates between the realities. Also, there's so many realities now. There's diminished reality, physical reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, mediated reality, MR. There is lots and lots of different realities, but now we can let x represent all of them and interpolate between all of them and extrapolate. The important thing is that XR extends our reality if we want it to, so that it interpolates or extrapolates, i.e. extends. And so a good example here is that we have an XR that takes us beyond the range of normal reality. For example, allows us to see in the infrared, to see otherwise invisible things, to extend our vision, not just annotate, not just add augmented reality overlays, but actually extend our vision and allow us to see, E. coli counts in the water, safety fields, danger fields, flux lines, and other things. XR, for example, I did a lot of work with seeing radio waves, seeing sound waves, and those kinds of things. So here we go anywhere from the isolation tank, sensory deprivation tank, all the way out to an extended reality that might be more than 100% reality. We may have a heightened sense of reality. The overlay may help us be even more in tune with reality than we would normally be. We're in tune not only with our own physiological senses like heart, respiration, and so on, but we're also in tune with GPS, compass, where we are, wayfinding, situational awareness, all of these things that actually gives us even maybe more of a dose of reality. It allows us to push a little bit further. You can go a little bit further in the ice water, push yourself just a little bit further if you know how much your heart's doing. You know when you've had too much to swim, because one of the things is safety, of course, and you want to know your limit and stay within it. And if you can know your limit, you can really push things a little bit and even experience a bit more of a dose of reality than 100%. Now, we've got really three axes here, alpha, beta, gamma. And so we've got the blue axis. Planet Earth is blue. That's alpha. That's the axis of physical reality, alpha. And we have the virtual reality, the green axis, beta. And we've got sociality, humanity, gamma. And so really, if we look at, say, these four elements, diminished reality, physical reality, virtual reality, and augmented reality, and extended reality, which can be anywhere in between or beyond, they're in this plane, alpha, beta. But then coming out of this plane, we've got shared VR, which is the metaverse. And then we have shared XR, which is the extendiverse, which we also refer to as mersivity. So we have mersivity is really about embracing this entire plane right at the intersection of all three of those elements. So it's important in mersivity. When something's immersive, it's both immersive and submersive in the sense that it immerses you, but you can immerse yourself and it. And so there's a reciprocal mersivity, remersivity, let's say. And so this has been the topic of much of our work, this extended metaverse. Mersivity has been an ongoing project between myself and Yu Yuan, Tom Furness, the grandfather of virtual reality, professors Joe Paradiso and others at MIT, as well as Tom Coughlin, the IEEE president-elect. And what we did is we put forth this idea of mersivity as this generalized framework, and we've been presenting these concepts widely around the world, and they're starting to take root. So one thing we often talk about is digital reality, and I just want to clear that really what we want is undigital reality. Digital reality, all cash is digital because you can't cut cash in half and have it still be legal tender. But with computers, we could actually have an undigital reality. We could, for example, it would be possible to enter into a contract for pi plus the square root of $2. And so that's a new concept, really, being undigital. And this was my invention of HDR, was the idea of being undigital with digital images. So here I've got $7.45. This is digital. These are physical coins and paper, which are necessarily digital because they cease to be legal tender if we chop them up or cut little pieces of them off. But here we could, in principle, use computers to achieve undigital currency, such as pi plus root $2. Again, we have some examples of analog reality versus digital reality. Here are some potentiometers, which are analog devices. We have some switches, which are digital devices. And that gives us a taxonomy or a generalization of looking at signals, analog signals versus digital reality, which is signals plus quantization noise. And so here is a nice little taxonomy. Perhaps a more meaningful taxonomy is to divide by amps and volts and look at the system. So, or a head flow taxonomy, similarly. And so these are this is the essence of being on digital. What we said is we want to use digital cameras to be on digital. And that was the title of the paper, Being on Digital. So I've been living in this sort of computer-mediated meta-vision. This is meta-sensing, photographing, sensing sensors and sensing their capacity to sense. I got this oscilloscope here in my childhood, and the time base on it was broken. It wasn't working properly, so I put it on a little set of rollers to roll it back and forth and move it left and right in front of this police radar. And of course, that gave me this look into metavision in 1974. This is the world's first photograph of electromagnetic radio waves, sensing sensors and sensing their capacity to sense, metavalence and metavision. These were early concepts. This is metavision, the vision of vision. This is a sequence of 36 exposures on a roll film capturing little animation of a surveillance camera's capacity to sense. So this is metavision, the vision of vision, sensing sensors and sensing their capacity to sense. Here is a photograph of that police radar with the oscilloscope moving and thus tracing out its metavision. Here is a more recent example of metavision. And these technologies, for example, we can photograph cars, self-driving cars, and see their capacity to see. And so this concept that I came up with in 1974 of metavision and metavalence was in many ways a kind of meta-sensing. And so this is the phase voltages on the bicycle going by. This is an e-bike with the phase currents in the voltage on the current to voltage sensor represents the rotor stator current in the motor. This is two microphones and a photograph of their capacity to listen, again sensing sensors and sensing their capacity to sense. So XR is something that Charles Wyckoff and I defined in 1991 as this combination of virtual environment with reality, where we have it being responsive to a real or complex valued output from reality. And collaborative or shared XR, of course, is this mersivity, giving us XV or mersivity. And so this is a definition that myself and Dr. Yu Yuan came up with together. So you can read more into this. And again, we have the three axes, the virtual, the physical, and of course, sociality coming out of the page. So I kind of, and of course we have associated with that a set of grand challenges. I kind of want to skip ahead a little bit here and just say technologies that become part of us, like clothing. Very funny, now beam up my clothes, Scotty. You know, this is an example of some humor that suggests that clothing is part of us. Or a boat, you know, if someone will often yell when our boats collide, someone will say, "You hit me." They don't say that your boat hit my boat. And so we think of these technologies as part of ourselves, like this spacesuit, we think of it as part of ourselves. And so the environment is that which surrounds us, and the environment is us ourselves, and the environment is that boundary between the environment and the environment. Cyborgs have existed for more than 1 million years. Bicycles, Manfred Klein's favorite example, is a person riding a bicycle. But vessels have been around even longer, for more than 1 million years, suggests that our cyborg origins date back more than 1 million years before Homo sapiens, before the invention of clothing, before the invention of the wheel. And so we have this notion of environment, and the environment is that which separates the two. This is a good example of environment. It's a unit sphere, 1 meter radius, 2 meter diameter, ball that you can walk on water in. And it defines a very clear environment-environment relation here that we can see in this diagram. So we have the environment in blue, alpha. We've got humanity in red, gamma. And we've got here, in this case, we've got technology is the environment, beta. And so we can think of these three things. Let me redraw them sort of in an interesting shape. I'll take nature as the water drop shape, humanity as the circle, and technology as the square screen in the more modern oscilloscopes that have square screens. And if we look at this diagram in this way, this is kind of a revisualization. We have ourselves, humanity, surrounded by the environment, and in between we have technology as a mediating surface, and there's 6 signal flow paths between here that connect each of those together. If we look at it equivalently this way, we can say each of these 3 elements, alpha, beta, and gamma, are connected bidirectionally, and immersivity, therefore, is humanistic intelligence. And so this is a theory of wearable AI or humanistic intelligence. Immersivity is HI. Immersivity is humanistic intelligence, equivalent, isomorphic to. And so this really gives us an idea that equivalence is the key fundamental element. We have an interaction between human and machine, but we must keep it symmetrical and keep the 2 signal flow paths roughly even. This is what we call surveillance systems. Surveillance is when we're being watched, and surveillance is when we're doing the watching. And what we need is a balance between surveillance and surveillance. As a kind of joke or comical element, I made this light switch that has a random delay. It's a push-on, push-off switch designed to annoy people, machine of malice. It has a random 3 to 5 second delay with a 10% packet loss. So it works about 90% of the time. It mimics what modern technology often does. It watches us intently but reveals very little about itself. And so that is a machine of malice. We have really a fractal nature of HI or immersivity in the sense the mind and body, mind and hand, let's say mens a manus in the MIT sense, forms this feedback loop inside the human, but then the human is part of the feedback loop with the technology and sensors and senses. So the human machine or cyborg is this element of sensing and sensors. And of course, this, again, the human machine now can be part of a community of cyborgs or a smart city where you have surveillance and surveillance and balance. So you can see this self-similar fractal nature of immersivity that really cuts across many disciplines. So here's an example of a vehicle. This is a vehicle of freedom. This is an example of a little bit of a fun swim with technology that's immersive. Immersivity is technology. Here's a smart paddleboard that follows me when I swim. It pulls along with the string with the thrusters in there that go in proportion to how much pull there is on the string. And this is an example of growler boarding, swimming over to a piece of ice, climbing up on the ice, and paddling. And so this is an example of another activity that's immersive. Immersivity is this element of technology that surrounds us, but yet connects us to nature. And so in summary, I want to say technology for humanity and the environment. That's what we really want, advancing technology for humanity and the environment. All 3. XR interpolates, extrapolates, as well as interpolates all the other realities. AR is very limited, so instead, let's promote and use XR, and more generally, let's promote and use XV. Instead of saying AR, VR, let's say XR, XV as our frame of reference. Immersive technology that you can immerse or submerse, and that's what we want. And IEEE Sections Congress, we will be talking more about this, and also save the date for our new Immersivity Conference. IEEE Immersivity, August 14th to 18th. Yu Yuan and I and various others will be creating this event. Thank you very much.
スティーブマン様によります映像にてのご講演をご覧いただきました。ありがとうございました。今日もたくさんのご講演をいただいておりますが、ここで皆様、パネルディスカッションへと移らせていただきたいと思います。本日、モデレーターをお願いいたしますのが、IEEE ブロックチェーンテクニカルコミュニティチェア共同議長でいらっしゃいます、ラメッシュ・ラマドス様です。そしてありがとうございます。パネラーといたしましてはオンライン参加になりますが、ユユアン様、IEEE スタンダーズアソシエーションの会長で国際メタバース協会名誉会長でいらっしゃいます。ここでも再びご登場をいただきます。そして早稲田大学メタバース研究所所長の西村昌司様、 また国際メタバース協会副会長で NPO 法人国際技術交流協会理事長でいらっしゃる小室弘美様によりましてパネルディスカッションを行っていただきます。では4名の皆様どうぞ壇上へとお上がりいただけますでしょうか。お願いいたします。本日はメタバース時代に世界が調和して発展する方法ということで進めていただきますが、ユーユアン様はオンラインつながりますでしょうか。そして小室様ですね。はい。ちょっと今、まずは映像の方をオンラインの方をつなげていただきたいと思います。はい。本日ユーユアン様はオンラインでの参加となりますが、はい、映像 ありがとうございます。はい、画面の方にもねご登場いただきました。ではモデレーターはラメッシュ・ラマドス様にお願いしたいと思いますので、どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。
Hello, everyone. Ramesh Ramadas. I serve as the chair of the IEEE blockchain technical community. We have over 60 blockchain groups all over the world. We have a group in Japan as well. So if you would like to know more, please talk to me.
Thank you. So I think Yuan-san is Yuan as a council. After we can join the team that started in Japan, what is means?
Preparatory group. Oh, sure.
Yes, yes. So Yuan-san.
You need me to do my introduction
yes,
again.
yes.
So this is Yuan. Sorry, I could not be in person with you, but I will be lucky enough to come to Kyoto tonight. So I'm the president of the IEEE Standards Association and also member on the IEEE Board of Directors. Thank you.
日本語でよろしいですか。はい。失礼します。今回の感想でよろしいでしょうかね。それとも。はい。メタバース、多分私午後に講演しようと思っていることは、結局世界をどういうふうに我々が認知するかの問題だと思うんですよね。で、多分一人一人が違う世界観を持っていて、で今現在起こっていることはメタバースっていうのは単なるこの現実の世界を、VR 上に展開しただけのものであるように感じています。でも実はそれってログアウト自分がね自分のアバターからログアウトした瞬間に、なくなっちゃうんじゃないかなという気もするし、でも実際の世界っていうのは私がいてもいなくても自立して存在して、いる。だからそこをどういうふうに実現していくのかっていうことが今後重大になってくるんじゃないかなと思っております。
ありがとうございます。Please.
So if I may add.
Yeah, go ahead, you.
Okay, thank you. So if I may add, I think a very important point I just made. I wanted to add that I think metaverse is basically about perception. It's like you perceive the external digital input as universe. It's a digital universe, and like what was just said, if it's just a temporary, then it's less valuable. So that's why, in my humble opinion, uh, one of the most important features, or maybe the most important feature of metaverse is persistence. So it has to be persistent so that everything in that virtual world or that virtual universe will make sense, will be valuable, and we can perceive and we can treat those items, objects, characters as the real ones in our current real world. Thank you.
So the topic was how to develop metaverse harmoniously. So there are, I want to understand, like, in Japan has this gaming is very strong in Japan. So how would that lead into the metaverse development? I want to understand that because we have, there's different communities working on metaverse. You have the big companies, like Meta, and we have, Microsoft and Nvidia. They have, metaverses, and then we have, of course, gaming companies. They're trying to develop our, metaverse gaming. And then the third category, we have blockchain companies developing metaverse with NFTs and some tokens. So now how do we, the question is like, since Japan is very strong in the gaming, so how do you see this, like helping with the metaverse development?
そしたら私日本語でちょっとお話が、自分の感想として日本はもう本当にメタバースが、もともとのベースがすごく基礎が持てたの国やと思います。例えばコンテンツ、そして漫画、そしてゲーム、そしてサイエンスとかそういう部分にクリエイティブの部分に対しては日本は非常にはもう歴史があってそれがメタバースの世界がこれからいろんな分野から組み合わせしてこのメタバースの世界に入るんじゃないかなと私は思います。特に京都は任天堂とか、東西とか、またいくつのゲームの会社がありますのでやっぱりその空間が作るの能力と技術がとても高いので、それが空間がまだメタバースの空間がどういうふうに生かしながらいくのか他の国に比べるとかなり日本の技術が優れていると思いますのでまだ京都も青瓦大学とか、大学もたくさんあるのでその中でアートの芸術の大学もこれからもたくさんの作品が IP としてはブロックチェーンあるいはそういう IP から仮想通貨の、交換するの付加価値できるのビジネスとしてはこれからどんどん展開していくではないんでしょうか。実はこの間私、前回山田前知事でインタビューしに行った時にお話ししてた聞いてたの内容はやはり今後も役場の方にも仮想空間の中に、役場がつけてしまうとそうなるとコストはもっと安くできるそうなると効率がもっと高くできるそういうふうな時代がもう近づくじゃないですかというような話が伺いましたので私はそういうふうに日本の特分野が世界中にも発信できるの、能力と技術があるので非常にメタバースの方に、発展の中で、重要な重要な位置かと思います。ありがとうございます。少しだけ下手くそな英語で説明します。Japan have too much the game the company. So in Kyoto and Tosei and the company and the Nintendo company and make the game. The game so
very near the metaverse, can make the contents, can make the different the metaverse and the space. So very good technology. So I think after Japan have the different IP, can make the different IPs and new business model and blockchain can and blockchain and NFT we together. So mix this new business. I think the very big market in the Japan. Thank you so much.
ちょっとまた戻っちゃうんですけどもね、継続性はこう担保されるというようなお話を今伺いましたけれども、メタバースって私もね従来はインターフェースだと思ってたんですよ。結局我々とそのメタバースの間にアバターがあって、我々はアバターを通じていろんな操作をしているということなんだけど、でもそれって冷静に考えてみると、例えばメタバースの中の植物、これっていうのは私がログインしてもしなくても成長してるはずですよね。でも実際は増加イミテーションの森にいるような形だし、そこにいるべき虫やら動物はぬいぐるみだったりおもちゃだったりするわけで生きてない。でもメタバースが本当に世界として存在するためには生きていなきゃいけないと思うんですよ。だから、メタバースはアバターがいようがいまいが、アバターは実はその裏には私たちがインターフェースした私たちがいて操作しているわけですけれども、それとは別に世界は生きているべきで、それはずっと続くけども、その中のメタバースの中にいる生き物は進化したり、あるいは絶滅したり、植物は成長したりっていうことが起こる。そういうなんていうのかな、全部作り込むんではなくて、我々種をメタバースの新しい作り方を私想定してるんですが、例えば我々が今いる時にDNA が生まれて、それから生物、生物が生まれて DNA ができたのかもしれませんけど、いずれにしても、そういうセントラルドクトリンという原理があって、それから、いろんな淘汰進化が始まって今我々がここにいると。で継続するけれども変わっている、生きている。だからメタバース自体が生き物であるというような認識。そうしないと何でもかんでもメタバースを作り込んでいかなきゃならなくなるから、その辺のことをちょっと変えていくのがいいのかなと思っているし、確かにゲームの技術素晴らしいものがあって、私の好きなゲームっていうかシムシティなんていうのもあったわけですけど、あるわけですけどね、そういったものの技術なんかも取り入れていくとまさにこう、メタバースが生き出すんじゃないかなと考えております。
ありがとうございます。実は今日はTikTok の会社からAR のメガネが持ってきましたんで、もう午後のプレゼンテーションの時にまたそのメガネが使って、もう今もこんな今回もその通訳の AI 通訳も TikTok の会社が提供していただきましたので、もう将来はもう通訳というものにはもうAI のメガネするとか、もう本当にもう言葉の障害なしで仮想空間の中でもう皆さん自由自在でもう国関係なくその世界でもう言葉が通じるような事態がもうこれからTikTok の方の会社も、すごく技術が研究開発していますので、
後ほど多分そういうメガネがまた皆さんがちょっと見せていろいろ展示することができます。ありがとうございます。Thank you so much. TikTok company can take on the AR camera and after can show everybody. I think translation is very is not easy, but metaverse in the metaverse the word maybe is language is not and not too much different. Everybody can using the translation and talking something and a good communication, I think.
In live like conversation.
Thank you so much. そして今日の時間がちょっとあまり詰まっていますのでここと一旦終了ということで、また次のステーションの方にまた司会の方によろしくお願いします。もうas time is not too much, so I think afternoon we can talk too much the different topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
ありがとうございます。ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございました。ラメシュ・ラマドス様、そしてユ・ユアン様、西村昌司様、そして小室ひろみ様によりますパネルディスカッションでした。ありがとうございました。では、ユ・ユアン様にはこのままお残りいただきまして、次のプログラムへと進めさせていただきたいと思います。今ご紹介くださいましたTikTok さんによります AI メガネの方はまた休憩時間に皆様にご覧いただけるかと思っておりますので、またそちらもご案内をさせていただきます。続きましては連携協力協定書締結調印式へと移らせていただきます。一般社団法人国際メタバース協会と協力を提携される皆様方ご紹介をさせていただきます。まずは IEEE スタンダーズアソシエーション様との提携となります。先ほどパネルディスカッションやまた映像でのオンラインでの講演をいただきましたユ・ユアン会長様、本日こちらにはお見えになれませんでしたので、代理といたしまして IEEE ブロックチェーンテクニカルコミュニティチェア共同議長のラメッシュ・ラマドス様、今パネルディスカッションも行っていただきましたが、あと IEEE メタバース標準ワーキンググループ議長でいらっしゃいますラルフ・マー様、どうぞ前の方にお越しくださいませ。そしてユ・ユアン様はオンラインでつなぐこと可能でしょうか。今もう一度お願いしたいと思います。はい、では IEEE スタンダーズアソシエーションの会長でいらっしゃいますユ・ユアン様からまずはご挨拶をいただきたいと思います。まだお顔の方がつながりましたね。
I
はい。
delegate to
お願いいたし
I
ます。
delegate to Ramesh for brief introduction of IEEE ISTO Metaverse Acceleration and Sustainability Association. Actually, what we are doing now today is to kick off a proprietary group, the Japan proprietary group, for this to be launched new program. And we already did that in Shanghai a couple of weeks ago. So today we are very proud and excited to do it in Kyoto. So I'll stop here and leave it to Ramesh to give you a brief introduction of this program. Thank you.
So if you could share that slide, I could talk through that. The Masa slide. Yeah, thank you. So Masa is a new organization that's being formed under IEEE ISDO. Masa stands for Metaverse Acceleration and Sustainability Association. And the goal, you can see the goal, we want to accelerate the development of metaverse and related technologies, ecosystems, and also markets. And in addition, we want to focus on sustainability. You know, United Nations have this sustainable development goals, so we want to actually also focus on that. And some of the things you see in the bullet points are going to be pursued under MASA. Like, we will look at landscape across the globe, what's happening in the metaverse space, outlook, and also roadmaps, because there are different communities working on metaverse. There are different ideas. Like I talked about the blockchain community, the gaming community, there's the big companies. They all have different ideas. So we want to bring all those ideas together, create a roadmap. And then open standards, conformity assessment, certification. Also, we want to look at open source implementations and some pilot for some use cases. Other things like we will look at digital assets, pool exchange, and also we want to drive the competition in the space in terms of innovation. Also, you know, lately with the rise of AI, you know, there's a lot of awareness about ethics of AI. So we will look at ethics in metaverse and help policymakers to develop, you know, the policies that will help with the adoption of metaverse technology. Next slide, please. So basically today we are announcing the launch of the Japan preparatory group. So I think I will have to place my hand on the blue and throw me on the... It's too, I know we both are not that tall, so... So I think we will do this in a photograph. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so you can see we have all these regional hubs as part of MASA. So we have in USA, United States, and we have an office. IEEE has an office in Silicon Valley, so that's our main hub. And then 2 weeks ago, we launched the hub on July 6th. We launched the hub in Shanghai. It's for the China hub. And today we're talking about the hub in Japan. We want to work with the International Japan Metaverse Association. So thank you for the opportunity. You want to add any words?
Thank you so much. 今回 IEEE の方と、メタバース協会と、いろいろ日本のメタバースと展開していくことに対して、出展のところに、メタバース協会に、連携できることが心より、喜んで思っていますのでありがとうございます。今後も、こういうメタバースの中でたくさんの人数が増えるように頑張っていきますのでよろしくお願いします。ありがとうございます。Thank you so much.
ありがとうございました。一般社団法人国際メタバース協会の副会長小室博美様が代表といたしまして、また IEEE スタンダードアソシエーション様と連携協力協定を結ばれました。新しい形での今、締結となりました。ありがとうございました。 ではもう一社ですね。はい、ここでご紹介をしたいと思います。中国南京大学メタバース研究所様とも締結されますので、所長のパン・ジ・コン先生、どうぞオンラインの方でお顔を見せていただけますでしょうか。よろしくお願いいたします。では小室弘美様も再び前の方にお越しくださいませ。本日臼日佐子会長の方がちょっと東京の方に今行かれましたということで、この後すべて小室弘美様に代表を務めていただきます。中国南京大学メタバース研究所所長パク・ジコン先生、はい、ありがとうございます。
実は私中国語すごく上手ですよ。一回ちょっと南京大学のパン先生と挨拶したいと思ってますので。パン教授你好。中国語難しいですね。でも漢字が日本語とよく似てるから、中国の方が非常に日本のこと、漢字があるから助かりますね。韓国いたら言葉全然わからないけど、日本に来たら、はい、潘教授你好。你可以可以听得到，你可以给我们讲有一个字词吗？谢谢。
Oh, hi, yeah. Yeah, my name is Zhigen Pan. Yeah, I'm from Nanjing University of Information Science and Technology. Yeah, I'd be glad to join this forum on metaverse. Yeah.
那我来说了你还是继续要说。
好的。
那你可以继续再讲。
你说吧，你说吧。好的。
今回この大会のきっかけで中国の南京、メタバース研究所の方の、所長パン所長と一緒にメタバース協会の方で、また国際的なメタバースの、コンテンツ、そして仮想通貨のWeb3.0、あるいは AI、それ含めて今回は一緒にプロジェクトの研究開発は、提携して結びいきたいということで今回は調印しますので、そしたらもうオンライン上で本当にここが佐久会長が、サインすべきなので代わりに私はやりますのでよろしくお願いします。潘教授，那我们就可以来签约了。我在这里签，你在那里签，签完了我们给大家展示一下好吗？谢谢。
では調印式の方へと。はい、移らせていただきます。では私の方が文面を読ませていただきます。一般社団法人国際メタバース協会と中国南京大学メタバース研究所は今後メタバース関係の研究、交流およびプロジェクト参加において提携いたします。では小室副会長サインをお願いいたします。はい、このように締結調印式執り行わせていただきました。今後とも力強くご協力関係で、はい、素晴らしい世界を作っていただきたいと思います。パン・ジコン先生も今ね調印していただきました、ありがとうございました。今後のご協力どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. It's not very good. Yeah.
谢谢潘老师，谢谢潘教授。那我们今天的秋印就到此结束，非常感谢。那我们下午见。再见，谢谢。
行，好的，好。再见。
ありがとうございました。今、中国南京大学メタバース研究所様と IEEE スタンダーズアソシエーション様との提携が見事に結ばれました。どうぞこれからもご協力をし合って、このメタバース業界、さらに飛躍に役立っていただきたいと思います。ありがとうございました。では、続きましては、国際メタバース賞授賞式へと移らせていただきますが、本日なかなか皆さん来日が難しかったということもございまして、後ほどこの受賞の賞状、そちらにご用意させていただいておりますが、送らせていただきます。本日は受賞の方のお名前のみのご紹介とさせていただきたいと思います。まず、メタバースの研究にリーダーシップを見事に、発揮されましたということで、先ほど講演もいただきましたが、ニール・トレベット様受賞でございます。おめでとうございます。続きましては、メタバース NFT&Web3.0 応用に研究に対しましてのリーダーシップ賞といたしまして、やっとしゅう様受賞でございます。おめでとうございます。また、メタバースアバタ研究に対してのリーダーシップ賞といたしましては、石黒博様受賞でございます。続いて、メタバース NFT& ブロックチェーン応用研究に対して、マラワン AI ザロント様受賞でございます。おめでとうございます。そしてもう一方は、ジュニアリーダーシップ賞ということで、メタバースの応用に対してリーダーシップを取られました小室みゆき様受賞でございます。おめでとうございます。この5名の方にはこの会場で授与式を行うことできませんでしたので、また改めて国際メタバース協会様の方から賞状を送らせていただきます。ここでお名前ご紹介をさせていただきました。さて、本日のプログラムですが、第1部ということで、ここで終了とさせていただきます。皆様で集合写真も撮らせていただきたいと思いますので、まずは本日ご登壇いただきました皆様方、壇上の方へとお進みいただけますでしょうか。まずはご登壇いただきました皆様、どうぞ壇上へとお願いいたします。パネルディスカッションしていただきました皆様方もそうですし、調停式ご参加いただいた皆様、どうぞまずは壇上へとお進みくださいませ。ラメッシュ・ラマド様もどうぞ。第2回2023日本国際メタバース大会、ただいま一部の結びに 集合写真撮っていただいておりますが、どうぞ会場の皆様、もしよろしければ先生方とご一緒にという方はご遠慮なく前の方にお進みいただきまして、お写真撮っていただいて結構でございますが、いかがでしょうか。どうぞ前の方にお進みいただきまして、お写真の方いかがでしょうか。どうぞどうぞ、どうぞ前の方にお進みくださいませ。本日はなかなか来日もかなわなかった方々もいらっしゃいますので、このようにリアルでお会いできるというのはね、貴重なお時間となりますので、ぜひご遠慮なさらずにお写真の方もお撮りいただきたいと思います。ありがとうございます。ではお写真撮影をもちまして、第2回2023日本国際メタバース大会第1部を終了とさせていただきますが、この後のご案内をここでさせていただきたいと思います。先ほど TikTok 様の AI メガネのご案内もさせていただきましたが、この後ロビーにて少しご案内もさせていただけるかと思います。展示などロビーにても予定しておりますし、また直接メタバース協会の方にお問い合わせをいただきましたらご案内もさせていただきます。また昼食はこの後1階の会場でご用意をしております。カレーライスを数量限定でご用意しておりますので、昼食召し上がられます方々は1階の会場にということになりますが、短い時間でお召し上がりいただけますように、カレーのご用意は昼食券2000円にて受付にご用意しておりますので、お買い求めの上1階会場へとお進みください。また文化会の方はこの後昼食後1時からということで、2会場に分かれましてのパラレルセッションがございます。この会場2つに分けさせていただきますが、舞の間では XR バーチャルリアリティデジタルツインをテーマに小室ひろみ様の進行で行われます。また蝶の間では Web3.0 と NFT 人工知能と AIGC をテーマにラメッシュ・ラマドス様の進行で行われます。登壇されます方々はそれぞれのお部屋に間違いのないようにお入りいただきたいと思います。また